Well, howdy, friends and neighbors. Hope you guys are doing well. The chat room right now, so we'll give it a second. I want to say hello. Hope you enjoyed the third preseason game. A lot to unpack there. And not just that there was a crazy announcement during it. Really interesting weekend, and unfortunately came away with a couple injuries. We're talking about that on the podcast tonight, as well as trying to do a little bit of commentary, not just on that particular part of it, but on what it means overall for the league as well. I'm trying to get my color balance here because this looks, there we go. Okay, that's going to work. I think that's going to work anyway. One of you guys had a really great suggestion that I use some of the lighting that I use in the background for the regular videos, use it tonight. So I'm going to give it a shot. It threw the color balance off a little bit, but I think that's corrected now. So we'll move forward and go from there. Man, that really does change quite a bit, but hope you guys are doing well. Okay, almost to 100 folks, and we'll get cutting. Tonight's beer, Tangerine IPA, Citradelic from New Belgium. I think you guys have probably had it. It's pretty widespread. May even do something on it on the beer podcast. Let me know if you guys are enjoying that. Obviously, this is a football channel, and so is the podcast channel, but a lot of beer fans, it hasn't been taken off like I thought it might, so I just don't know if it's just not that much of an interest to a lot of folks. So if you do, throw something in there about the beer pods. Chiefs have a lot going on. Today they announced the injuries to Chad Henne, as well as Breland Speaks. And Speaks is the one that caught me more off guard, to tell you the truth, because the delay kind of had me thinking that it wasn't going to be as serious as it turns out that it is. Both an MCL sprain that looks like it may need surgery, as well as a meniscal problem. Now, initial report, and what I talked about on the podcast, is the difference between repairing, stitching up, trying to put back the meniscus versus just cutting out the part that is torn. The repair actually takes longer. Just removing it is a little bit quicker recovery because you remove the part that kind of binds up the joint. And, you know, a couple of folks that I know have gone through this before. Mine meniscus are mostly intact. I've strained ligaments before, but I haven't really ever done the meniscus itself. It gets a little problematic when you try to recover from repair, and it takes longer. So either they're having a partial repair of the MCL, or they're going to do the repair of the meniscus, which is going to take the 3 months that they outlined today from the Chiefs themselves. The other thing to Henne was a fractured foot. It's going to put him on IR. And that's something that they can probably come back from, but I don't know if they really want to. It's going to make it hard to make the roster work. They signed more right after. I mean, the announcements came so quickly. It was really, really interesting. They had been planning this. Moore was a guy that they looked at a couple of years ago, and it just didn't work out. He had since retired from football, so he's really coming off the bench quite literally. And I think that's going to be a real interesting dynamic. A lot of terminology to learn in Andy Reid's system. Moore's not anything like Patrick Mahomes in terms of his ability, so that kind of changes things as well. But they like what he does, and they've liked him for a while. So I think that's a reason to be optimistic. So I'm going to go that direction, and I just can't decide what's best. So I'm going to go with that for right now. That puts a little twist on the roster. We're going to talk about the roster as it comes up. Some observations from the other night. I thought the use of Reggie Ragland was really, really unique. They put him out from the sand. They put him out on the edge. He took on blocks pretty well. He defeated blocks. He ducked some. I think Reggie's starting to round into shape and showing us what he's been showing the staff for a long time. So I'm glad to see that. You guys all know that I've been a proponent of his, and I think that's going to stick. Dorian O'Daniel got a lot of time. Not sure if he knew where he was going or what he was doing all the time, but that's what happens. So, good for him. I hope that he makes it. The necessity for Jeremiah Ocho might push him onto the roster. There's never a clear sign for it. So, couple of things. Adam, thanks for your Gary, thanks for your comment. Keith Ford, Henny's was the backup. Now it'll be more. Curtis, I appreciate that. I have had Scottish beers. And Jody, you can find it on the RGR podcast channel. over where the Locked On Chiefs podcast comes up on YouTube. I just wanted to get those before we got too far away. If anybody wants to donate to the channel, feel free. Super Chat is open. If you do make a donation through Super Chat, please ask me a question so I can give you something for that donation, like right here tonight. I see Wolverine already did that. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll answer your question momentarily. The signing of Matt Moore, he'll be the backup. They could try and actually keep a different third quarterback if they really wanted to. I don't think they're going to want to. That's going to be the problem. I think they're pushed roster-wise in a number of different ways for the tight end spot, all the wide receiver depth, the DB depth that they need. Now what they're going to have to wrangle along the front on the defense. There's a lot of interesting things there. And I think it's going to come down to two quarterbacks. That's what we've been thinking when it was Henny. Maybe the fact that it's not changes it because Shermer's been in the actual offense for weeks and Moore hasn't. So that might change that as well. But I don't think it's going to be permanent through the season. It could be a temporary fix and then a release and then sign back to the practice squad and that kind of back and forth. So don't be worried about ups and downs. I think that's going to be normal and that's not really too far-fetched. So I think it'll work out just fine. Okay, so got Keith's question. Obviously, Henny gone with Moore coming in. He'll be the backup. Morbian got yours as well. Andy, good point. Broke 200. Thank you guys. I appreciate you spreading the word. It's great to see so many people, especially when we're not even in season yet, paying attention and being able to jump in. That's great. I love this interaction. This is one of the highlights of my week, especially for the channel. So with that said, we'll start in on the questions. Oh, wait, one more thing. Juan Thornhill. Spags talked about him in his presser today that he missed a few assignments. If you go back and you look at some in the second quarter, especially when the Niners scored, he was just a step late getting on a couple of plays. The long one that Breland gave up when he was, I don't know if he was beaten off the line or if it was a trail technique. It could have been either. But Thornhill was late getting over. Then the touchdown to Breida, he was late getting over. But he learned from that, and that's what Spags emphasized today. So I feel like it was a couple of missteps for Juan Thornhill, but I do feel like he's still making progress, and they're really happy with that. So I think that's really the core of what it comes down to. That said, we'll jump into the questions now. Wolverine, you were first. Thank you for the donation. Will Matthew be in the starting, make a big difference in the starting lineup? Absolutely. He hasn't played a whole lot. He's been fairly reserved in terms of snap counts. And that's just because you don't want to take a huge risk with him. You already see the risk that Mahomes takes, which drives everyone crazy, especially me. Pat just has to go down earlier. I know you can slide, Patrick. Just get down earlier. So I think that's just being cautious with Tyrann Mathieu. You want him to be fully prepared. And I think you've seen in general, they take on the run better. They're stiffer, they're more aggressive, they're gang tackling more than we've seen in preseasons past. And I think that's directly part of the staff change with Frank and Tyrann helping that along. I think when they're all on the field together, I think they played 2 snaps for all the starters this preseason. That's really, really going to come together. So that'll just take it up another notch. And I think that's a good thing. They're kind of building that way in reserving Matthew's playtime a little bit. I think that will really make a punch when it happens. Great question. Aaron, how are you? Gary, Ward had a horrible game. Does Fields make the team now? I don't think it has anything to do with Fields making the team. I had him pushing to make it already. I don't know. Ward gave up some plays. I don't know if he played terrible. He definitely just doesn't look that comfortable in zone. I expect Mo Claiborne to start at this point unless something really changes this week in game 4. I think Mo will get some reps. And by start, I mean Mo Claiborne won't be available until game 5. He's on a 4-game suspension. But when that happens, unless Ward makes some serious changes, I expect Mo Claiborne to come in and start at that point. Just because Ward's good when he's in contact, when he can put a hand or at least be close to in man coverage. When he has to drop in the zones, that's where it gets a little bit iffy. And I think that you can see some pluses into playing Mo Claiborne in that spot. So I think they'll give that a shot. Good question, Gary. Let's see. Jerry Cole, is CB still the weakness? Yes, I think it is. They could still bolster that. but I think it's still probably the weaker position on the defense. Although I will say, Breland has caught my eye several times. He gave up a couple of plays, but he's been playing better. And he was tracking Marquise Goodwin the other night, so that was pretty astounding for me. That's a good sign that he's more athletic right now than we've seen him in the past. Ray Booth, can you try and explain what's going on with Garrett Dieter and what will happen if the team puts him on IR? Is he still considered to be on the team? Yes, he's still a member of the team. He'd get a ring if they won the Super Bowl, and he's still on the practice squad. Also, how much does Jimmy G remind you of Castle? Well, there are a lot of consistencies there. Okay, going on IR, I have no idea what's going on with Garrett Dieter. He trained all offseason. We saw a video of it. I mean, right up to the point where he reported for training camp, and then something happened. Didn't practice all of camp. They called it back spasms. I'm not convinced that's what it is. That's a euphemism for a lot of things. My guess is that he hurt his back somehow. Could it be overtraining? I don't know. Did he do it on the field? Doesn't seem like it. But one way or the other, he's not physically able to perform. So he's going to start on IR. I am almost immediately certain because I don't think they want to part with him. And if he's on the PUP list, he takes up a roster spot, so you don't want to do that. So I think he goes on IR, and I think that it's a rehab season for him, which sucks for him because of the situation he's in and all the competition. But that's what it feels like to me. Beyond that, the second half, Jimmy G, I think he's got spurts, and I like him going forward. I think he'll grow into it, and the more weapons they get him, the better. He and Kittle are going to be a demon duo this season, so we'll have to watch out for them, but I don't see him making the playoffs or anything like that. So it'll be what it is. Good questions. Jeremy Jones, how about K-Pass? Yes, I think he's definitely going to make the roster now. He should be the primary backup, especially now that he doesn't have to compete against Speaks, because Speaks is going to go on IR. Good for him coming home to a system that is more suited to his talents. Really helped him. And sometimes it's just a comfort level of being able to do what you know you can do. And maybe that's what it is. I've never met or even heard Tano really interviewed, to tell you the truth. So I don't know what kind of effect that might have had, but certainly very interesting. Finn asked, after 3 preseason games, how do you feel about the backfield? I assume you mean the offensive backfield. And I'm feeling pretty good. It came out exactly as I expected in game 3, with Damien showing off what he can do and the reason he is the starter, Darrell coming in next and being the battering ram that kind of has to wait for his moment, but he's got good acceleration too. It's about picking and choosing, kind of like the old days where you'd run and then you'd pop one. That's more Darrell Williams style. But he's good in pass protection. He's great catching out of the backfield, and I think he's proven that. I think he is the primary backup. If you want to name one, it could be like 1% more touches than Darwin, because Darwin proved that he can play as well. And I think Darwin's a nice addition to this. So the 3 of them make a really nice backfield together with Sherman. I think you're set. You can run power. You can run single. You can, run double pass catching sets, whatever you want. The iffy part for me is going to be Tremont Smith. Does he make it as a running back? Are they just keeping him as a kick returner, and they'll line him up wherever they think they can get something done? That could be it too. The return of Dot is a question mark for him and Tremont Smith, but we'll see. I'm pretty comfortable. I hope you guys are too. I think it's going to be a good backfield. Let's see. Michael Rodriguez, is it time to trade Dorian O'Daniel? It might be. The only problem is he probably has very, very little value. Didn't play enough last year to really make a name for himself. And quite frankly, he hasn't put anything extraordinary on film this preseason. So he could be a player to be thrown in on another deal, maybe for Hyde, but I don't know. I just don't see many takers out there for Dorian. I'm hoping that he can continue to develop and get used to this system, because I still feel his athleticism makes him a big upside guy that I'd like to see stick around. Caleb London, thoughts on Watts? I think Watts is just struggling with the physicality of it. The safeties have to be more physical in this defense than they did before. They have to be able to operate independently. And I just don't know if it's a learning thing about the defense, about the calls, or if it's just the fact that Matthew is clearly the top. Thornhill, they made the investment in. He's going to be huge, and they like Dan Sorensen. They always have. I think I would take Watts over Lucas myself, but I don't know if the team feels that way. So I'll be really interested to see what happens. Matt and Chris both think that they're going to keep 5 safeties, so it's not much of a question. And then it'll be about who plays where. And I think Watts is probably better at the back of the defense. They seem to move him around a lot, trying to figure out what to do with him. So I think that's part of it as well. Good question. Alex Mixel, do you think Shermer goes to the practice squad or Litton? I think they're going to let both of them go, and they'll see who they can get back. And I think they want Shermer. I think there might be more of a market for Shermer out there. So it really depends on, what do you want to do? Do you want to be on the practice squad for a Super Bowl contending team, or do you want to try and go be a backup somewhere? That's really what the decision will come down to, I think, for Shermer. Let's see. Flam Yo Dill, I like it. Houston needs a running back. Should we trade Hyde? Yes, certainly. The only problem is, again, he doesn't have much value. He hasn't done much this preseason. Got bopped around from team to team last season. So that's on film. Again, just doesn't bring much in value. I certainly not for Clowney, and I've seen that rumor going around all day long. Nobody's giving up Clowney for Carlos Hyde. I can guarantee you that right now. But for a low-level draft pick, sure, a 6 or a 7, Hyde could probably bring that. Could you get a developmental corner? Maybe, but you have tons of those. So what good does that do you? Maybe a backup tight end. That could be a decent trade. I think there are opportunities out there. They'll just have to see who's willing to give up what. But I would expect they're on the phone now. I expect they'd be on the phone all week until cuts come out. Let's see. Derek Newson. Now that you have seen the first team D for a bit, do you think they'll be ranked in the low teens? No. Right now, they look like a 22 to 18 type unit right now. Let's see how much farther they can get together when they get Matthew and Clark and everybody else on the field and actually play some competition. Jags are going to be tough. They're not as dynamic as they used to, but D.D. Westbrook's a tough cover. They can run the ball. Foles knows this team. Even if there's a lot of new players on it, he knows. And I think Foles is still a very good quarterback. So get through week 1 and see what happens is my guess. Kelly Blepp. Oh, shoot. Scrolled too far. Hold on, Kelly. I'm going back. Let's see. There, Kelly Blevins. My question is, I'm still concerned at number 2 tight end. What do you think? I'm still concerned too. Blake Bell, the drops bother me. It's Demetrius Harris all over again. I think he blocks a little bit better. But certainly tight end and corner are the 2 waiver wire pickups that I could see them really concentrating on when other teams cut down. Those are the 2 weakest links on this roster, from my opinion. Firefighter Farmer, how are you? Is more better than Shermer. He's got a lot more experience. He can read defenses. His arm is probably, I don't know, not as good, but not by a lot. He's been out, so hopefully he's fresh, but hopefully he can get in shape. I don't know. I think he will be. I think they rely on his experience and being able to read a defense first and foremost. With those weapons, if you can get the ball in somebody's hand, you can rely on this group of skill position players to get you yak and get your yardage that way. So if the worst were to happen, let's not even go there. Okay, Caleb London, sorry. Yeah, trade Hyde to Houston. Sure. If they're willing to give something up, why not? Who's had the better preseason, Litton or Shermer? Count Ripula. I think it's Shermer by a mile, to tell you the truth. And I'm a fan of Litton, so I'm a little disappointed. Jerry Cole, thanks for your donation. And thanks for the comment. I don't know about the best pod ever, but I'm working on it. Chris and Matt and Seth help out a lot as well. The Lake Aaron was great. Got a little bit of rain, but it wasn't super hot. Got out on the water some, and that was good for me. I needed a little downtime, especially when I can't see the game in market and I have to watch it on my phone either way. I might as well be somewhere else that's nice. Let's see here. Nathan Roth. Did you hear Trent Green say that during the game that Andy Reid told him Darwin Thompson is the number 2 running back? I did not hear him say that. I didn't really listen to the game or the commentary much, just watch the replay with the sound off, really. By the snap counts, I would say it's not true. It could be at some point. I think it's really going to be situational. I think Darwin and Darrell are so different that when Damien's not in the game, I think it's going to be a little bit more situational about what you're trying to do. So I don't read into who's second or third. I don't think it's a big distinction. I know I can rely on Darrell. So me personally, I'd put him as the number 2. And I think that's probably the way that it shakes out. But I don't know what Trent was referring to. Hippie, if Demetrius gets cut from the Browns, do you think Veatch would resign him? I think he might. I don't know if Andy would. But at this point, is he better than Blake Bell? Maybe. The drops are certainly similar. And Demetrius knows the offense. Plus, he's a little bit more athletic. So who knows? Oh, man. The Demetrius Harris saga. Dr. Sanitary, how are you? Do you think that Speaks' injury guarantees Agba's spot on the roster for now? That is what I think the reaction is. Chris thinks it could be Ada Ocho because he's got that versatility at end or linebacker. But I think because Speaks was playing inside, so I think Agba would be the guy that I think makes it in his stead while he's out hurt. We'll see what happens. The number of snaps that they give away will be interesting to see in week 4, and that'll give us an indication. Scott Conklin, these preseason games are making me nervous about the defense looking bad. The defense is only calling like 6 or 8 plays, so I wouldn't be too worried. Worry about the technique. Worry about guys who are playing zone that aren't doing very well, guys that aren't taking on blocks well. I thought Darren Lee looked good the other night taking on blocks. I thought Reggie looked much better. I think Hitch avoided more, which works just as well. Derek Johnson made a living doing that, so that's not a problem. But I think overall it's about getting the linebackers clean so they can go make plays. And I do think that everybody is starting to look more aggressive, less hesitant, know where they're supposed to be, and that's going to be key. Play fast, and you will win the matchups. Let's see. Gary Holland. Ryan, who is the field general on defense to make decisions where everybody needs to be on everybody play? They're really going to split it. Frank's going to be kind of the motivational guy. The linebackers line up the front because they can't see very well. Reggie does that a lot. You'll see him jump up to the line of scrimmage, move guys around, slap them on the butt, move them sideways or whatever. And Tyron's going to do that in the back, especially with Thornhill because Thornhill's so new to seeing some of these wrinkles, whereas Matthew can kind of feel it as it's going. So it's really going to be split down the middle between those guys, in my opinion. Scott Smith, what do you think of the secondary? I would like to see better corner play. I don't know if Mo's going to be able to deliver that or not, but I'm hopeful. And I think Ward, with another season of playing part-time, I think he will get better. And you saw that they mixed some zone and some man coverages. So I think that's good for everybody on here. Everybody can do a little bit of everything without exposing their weakness too consistently. Adam Daughtry, thanks for your donation. I appreciate it. Who coaches the last game, Big Red or EB? I mean, they're both going to be there. I would think that Eric Bieniemy gets to make some calls. I know they work together and Eric suggests or whatever. And this is what we've seen classically for the last few years between Nagy and Doug Peterson before him. Suggestions without being the guy in the headset. I think that's kind of a handoff that's coming. So I think EB will make some calls in the 4th. And that lets Andy do a little bit more clean observation as well. And I think that's probably a plus. Good question. The final roster cuts are Friday after the last preseason game. Metal Rocker, how are you? What do you think of the signing of DeAnthony Thomas in light of what happened to camp? I think it's perfect. DeAnthony is a guy that's got the speed. He's got the special teams experience to know where to be. And I think you saw that. The first play of the game, he comes down there and makes a tackle as a gunner, which is what Kemp used to do. So, yes, he's slight. You got to worry a little bit more about injury with him than you did about Kemp, but I think he can get the job done. Especially while they train up somebody else to do it. So I think it's a positive. I think he needs to be on the roster. I don't know with all the guys that they have to have on the roster day one and then send to IR or send to suspension, then sign guys back. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I think that will be on the roster when game 1 kicks off. Yes, Michael Ross. Is anyone a fan of Hyde? I was a fan of Hyde for a long time until he hit the injury bug, and you just can't fight injuries. If you can't play, you can't play. But he had some great stuff when he was first in the league. I think he had some wasted years, but situations are tough, and I feel for him. I think he wants to play. I just don't think he's got it anymore. D Big Smooth, thanks for your donation. Could Cody Thompson be the Thielen of the Chiefs? Could be. Similar path so far. He catches a lot. He runs good routes. He's thick enough, although he does feel kind of skinny to me. I want to see him make the practice squad, develop a little bit more. And if there is an injury, I want him to be the guy that gets called up. I don't think because of the Kemp thing. I think Pringle is probably the 5, and I think that's probably going to be the 6. I could be wrong. Maybe they go deeper than that, but I think Cody Thompson, despite his good play, I think he's a practice squad guy, and that's just the way it's going to have to fall because of all the guys ahead of him. Nothing to be a slight against him. Let's see. Marioko TM. Defense still worries me, and it really wasn't on board with Spags. Hoping for the best. That being said, what right do you see this defense in? Will Mahomes throw 50 touchdowns again? I think they're going to be better than last year. Like I said, I think they're going to be 18 to 22-ish, maybe a touch better. Could they get to 15? Maybe. And so that does take some of the impetus off of Pat Mahomes. I'm kind of wishy-washy. I could see Pat Mahomes throwing for mid-40s, like 44, 46, something like that. Or maybe he just goes off, and maybe Andy never takes the foot off the pedal, or Pat has more influence on keeping the pedal down. And maybe they do run up the score on teams that they should. And maybe he does get back to the 50 mark. Could he go 53? Sure. It all depends how it works out. And honestly, it's not just the defense. It's a big factor. I think the defense is the biggest factor in what he has to do. But it's also about him and Andy keeping their foot on the pedal and getting to the point like the Patriots have been, where if they're supposed to beat a team badly, they do it. That they don't let up at 14 points or 17 points. 25, 28-point wins is what this team should be putting up. Let's see. Austin Howe, how are you? Do you see Matt Moore getting any action in preseason game 4? Maybe. That's awful short notice, but like I said, his experience allows him to do some things like that. Maybe he does. I think really you don't need it because you're going to keep him around. You signed him for that reason to replace Henne, and you know that the other guys are developmental, so there's not much to be gained by it. Maybe you just let him have the week off, and he's going to be the backup come week 1. I don't know. Aaron Morrow, why Matt Moore? When they were shopping for Henne, Moore was the other guy that they brought in because of his experience, because he's run a West Coast offense, because he can do the things that Andy needs him to do in diagnosing defense and putting the ball in the right spot, much like Alex Smith did. Alex Smith wasn't here for his big arm. It's because he ran the offense well. I think Moore is the same thing. I think Henne is the same thing. And it goes back to the fact that Henne got signed and Moore never really did. So he was available. And I don't think a year off is going to hurt a guy like that too bad. So I think it was just a comfort factor. From what I understand, it was the first call that they made. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Caleb, I talked about Armani Watts quite a bit. I appreciate the question, and I will come back to it if we need to. Let's see here. Let's see. Adam Daughtry, is Dieter pulling a D Ford move? I don't think so. I think Dieter would like to be out there and would like to make this team. He's got nothing to gain from doing this, so he may even be putting his career in jeopardy. So if he did it on purpose, he's lost his mind. Let's see. Gary Holland, does Thompson and Pringle, who do you like better as the 4th or 5th receiver? I think it's clearly Pringle. I like Thompson, and if they hadn't signed Dat back, I think he would have made the roster. I don't know that he's going to now. I could be wrong. There are slight differences when you get down to those levels. But I think Pringle is definitely in their plans. Maybe he hasn't broken out as much, but everything that Thompson's done has been against backup, so that kind of taints the production as well. I do think Pringle is still ahead of him. I like them both, though. Curtis Douglas, with all of our IR possibilities, Do we have to designate the players we put on IR to return, or we can pick that? You can pick that later. You can put everybody on IR when you feel like you know who you're going to designate to return when they're ready. That's when you do it. Is there a certain amount of time they have to be on IR? I think it's a 6-week window. I think they cannot come back before week 6 is what it is. Could be week 8. I'd have to check the rules on that, but that's what I think I remember. Let's see. Nathan Roth, did you see the Patriots center Andrews could miss the whole season with blood clots in his lungs? Good Lord. No, Nathan, I did not. Wow, that's horrible. I don't think the Chiefs are in position to trade anybody over there, especially the Patriots. So we'll just hope, give the guy crossed fingers for his recovery, and we'll see what happens. Oof, man, that's life-threatening. That's terrible. Aaron, does Agba make the team in Speak's place? Yes, I think so. That's exactly where my head went to. Could be out of Ocho instead. We'll see what they like. I keep comparing out of Ocho to Frank Zombo because he can play outside, he can play inside. They like him off ball, on the line of scrimmage. So it could be him too. I think he's played better than Agba, but I think Agba can play more of what they wanted Speaks to do in terms of going inside or playing end. So I think it does make sense to keep him. Let's see. Linebackers lost in passing coverage. Lost, I wouldn't say that, but they're definitely not perfect yet. I don't think they're hunting for their spots. I think what they're working on is kind of a zone matchup thing where they're trying to drop, but if somebody crosses them or somebody comes into their zone, that they're trying to attack rather than laying back too much. And I think that's where some of them are getting caught a little bit in the middle. You saw Dorian O'Daniel taking a lot of false steps, coming up, dropping back, coming up again on some of those screens, just not sure what he's seeing. And I think that's the learning curve. I felt like Ben Neiman and Darren Lee are clearly the primary backups, and they both look like they're comfortable in coverage for the most part. I think it will get better as it goes on, and they understand where they're being attacked from. Let's see. Yevgeny, welcome back. Whose playoff chances helped the most by the Andrew Luck retirement? The Patriots or the Chiefs? I don't think either the Chiefs or the Patriots needed any luck to make the playoffs. The Super Bowl chances, I think it helps the Patriots more. I feel like the Chiefs can beat the Colts even with Andrew Luck pretty handily like they did last season, but I feel like the Patriots are a little bit more evenly matched, and that might have helped them a bit more. It certainly helps both teams, though. Andrew Luck and that team is a formidable foe. I just feel like Mahomes is and his crew are better. But yeah, that's where I think it sits. Brent Harlow, is Speaks headed for IR? Yes. It's a meniscus tear and an MCL. Curtis Douglas is odd, but yep, he does. Carliners, no, I don't think Hyde has much trade value. That's the problem. Keith Ford, who are RBs for sure making the team? Absolutely for sure is Damien Williams, Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson, and the Shermanator. Absolutely. Tremont Smith is very likely, in my opinion, because I think they want him as a kick returner. No matter where they have to slot him, they want him on the team, is my guess. I don't think anybody else is going to make it. And Smith is certainly not a shoe-in for that running back spot. Let's see. Austin, how do you think the Chiefs do with Speaks and Henne? Yeah, I covered that, Austin. They're both going to go to IR, at least temporarily. One will probably be designated a return. I think both will be able to at one point. Nathan Altick, is just me, or is Raglan playing a lot of Sam and looked better doing it? Yes. He played Sam when he was off the ball. He played up on the line when they went to kind of a 3-4 look. And I told you, he's got some pass rush. He pass rushed pretty well at Alabama. He's an alpha guy. He's a physical guy, and he wants to go hit somebody. He played too heavy last year, and he had a bum knee last year. I think he came back healthier. I think he's lighter. I think he's doing what he's supposed to do. And I think the staff has gone out of their way to simplify things for him and Hitch and make their reads more specific. And I think that's helping him play fast. I think he's going to be on the field a lot. Certainly in passing situations, they're going to take him off. That's why you see, Hitch and Wilson's the guy that's really stood out to me. Damien Wilson as a sandbacker has been in the nickel and played well. So I think they're comfortable there. So Reggie can really just do his big hunt him down and hit him kind of thing. And I love it. So yeah, I think I agree with you completely. I think Reggie's playing pretty decent. Andy Anderson, what do you think of Damien Wilson as a starter? Okay, there you go. Good question, Andy. Let's see here. Dan Durham, when a player goes to IR, they don't count against the 53-man roster. Technically, that's true. But in order to go to IR, you have to be designated. That's the question. It can come at cutdown day, and it forces a couple of things to go on. Vested veterans get released right away, so they don't go through the waiver process, and that helps sometimes. Let's see. Stephen Ehlers, in your opinion, what players have trade value that they could consider moving? Daniel, Hyde, Tremont Smith. Beyond that, I think they're pretty set. I don't think they're going to get much. If they chose to move on from Allegretti, maybe, but I don't think they will. Same thing with Wiley. I don't think they will. So I think those are the big ones. Good question. Ian Connis, Dat does not make the roster. Does Dat not make the roster? Yeah, I have him making it. There's a slight possibility that maybe they don't because they have to suspend Mo. They have to have Henny and Speaks on the roster and then send them to IR. So there's like 3 spots there that might be a revolving door. And we talked about it on the podcast today, which should be up by now. They may just have to do a little merry-go-round there, and I'm sure Dat will be in on it. I think that, like I said, will be there on week 1. Let's see. Thank you, Jerry. That helps a lot. The question marks before the question help me pull it out of the chat really well, guys. Let's see. Jeremy Jones, thank you for your donation. I appreciate it very much. I don't know that you've done this before. Do you think that we are set at CB, or do we go for a vet? If a vet were to come available, maybe. If Janoris Jenkins gets cut, go get him. I don't think Pat Peterson's on the table. I know everybody wants him. I'd love to see him in a Chiefs uniform, but he's out 6 games. Trading for him is not very economical, so I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think the Vikings are willing to give anything up, so I think that's off the table as well. So I think you're really looking at a cut down rather than a trade. Good question, though, and I won't be surprised if they do it. Ken Wood, thanks for your donation. Great question. Did Pringle pull ahead of Thompson? Yes, and I don't think it was very close. I kind of feel like he was ahead of him to begin with. He just hadn't made any splash plays. So, yeah, I think he is ahead, and I think Thompson goes to the practice squad. Young Precise, thank you for your donation. Come back and ask something if I don't scroll to it. Ian, do you think Clark will be a better football player than D Ford? It just in general, nothing about scheme fit. Yes, I do. He's not as explosive. D Ford is explosive, but he's got better power. He's got better pass rush moves. He's got better recognition. He's a better player. So I think they went and did something. It was expensive to spend the first round pick, but I think they did a good job, and they got a guy that can help them. Let's see. Scrolling. CJ Dial. How much easier is Andrew Luck retiring make it for the Chiefs? It makes it so that they're a substantial team. I think the Chiefs would have beat them anyway, but it does make them less of a hurdle. Unfortunately, it brings up some other teams that if they can get their stuff together, you might be able to figure that out. Does it let the Chargers get a little bit farther? Maybe. I expect the Chargers to make the playoffs just like they did last year after barely losing the Chiefs in the division. So, okay, I'm going to take out this Raider guy. Hang on a second, you guys. Hopefully you don't have to see any more of that. Sorry, I'm a little late in the scrolling, but I found it. So, yeah. Samuel, Finn, thank you for you. I appreciate that, and he's out. Okay, so back to that. Lost my train of thought. So we'll move on. Sorry. Jerry Cole, yes, I think the run defense will be better. CJ, sorry, back to your question. I think it helps some of the other teams make it in. I'm not counting out the Baltimore Ravens. I like what Lamar Jackson brings, and I think he might be able to take a step forward. So it is what it is. Julio Benitez, I don't think 22 is ready. What's your thoughts? I don't think he's 100%, but I think he's better than Dan back there. And I think he has to be ready. I do think that he's going to play a lot, and I think he will grow rather quickly in the first couple of weeks. I'm not too worried about that. Let's see. JE, run defense looks much improved. I felt like our backers got picked on in coverage. True. Is this a sign to come, or do you think they'll adjust and be fine? No, they're going to get picked on, but I think they will improve. And if that's what they're doing, I think there's ways around that. I think you're going to see a lot of disguise. And I think what you're going to see is if they're going to choose to pick on backers, which are intermediate routes, they're going to see a lot of pressure, overloads, corners, safety blitzes that are going to make some of that harder because those backers will be able to be helped by that by being in the lanes. That's what's going to go in their direction. So yeah, I'm fairly optimistic about how they're going to play overall. Ian Connis with Speaks injured. Is Casman the main backup for the defensive lineman? No, but at defensive end, he is. The main backup is probably going to be either Xavier Williams or Ivy, it looks like, for the 2 D tackles. And Saunders will be there as well. Let's see. Charlie. Hey, how are you? Folks, say hello to Charlie Rogers. He's been in here a while. I'm slow on the chat, but hey, he will tell you about beer and football. CJ Dial, another good question. Who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the AFC? You have Mahomes and Rivers in this part of the division. I think you guys still got to put Roethlisberger up there. Who else? You can argue about Brady. And if you're talking about pure quarterback ability, maybe he's not in the top 5, but the guy just wins. So I'm going to put him there. I'm not really going to argue about that very much. That's anybody wanting to convince me of that has a pretty easy task. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Evan I, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. Surprised that the Chiefs signed D'Anthony Thomas. No, I'm not. In fact, Chris and I were talking about it as soon as we found out about camp, like who could they bring in to try and get the special teams solidified? And we started looking whether Dad had been signed or not. We thought maybe he had, but we were wrong. So no, it made perfect sense. And I think it gives Dave's Tobe a nice comfort zone to be where he wants to be with a guy that he can trust to do the job. Now, injury is still a concern with that, but I think he knows the job to do. And so I'm very comfortable with it. It seems like he's really happy to be back. So evidently he stayed in Kansas City on purpose, a guy from the West Coast. So good for him. Jason Armstrong. I know it's a bit off topic, but not terribly. I know we're good at RB. Tell me you wouldn't want to see Puka Williams on the Chiefs team. I like him, but yeah, they're pretty set. I'm happy with the guys they have. John Bridge, any chance we trade for Clowney? No, I do not think so. They can't afford to pay him afterwards, so it'd be a wasted trade. Let's see. Where's the question? Okay, Ian, any specific player that you think the Chiefs should try to trade to get specifically? Specifically, that's tough. I'd love to see Kevin King from the Packers in a Chiefs uniform, but you'd have to give up a boatload to get him. He's a great young corner that played at Washington that can play excellent in zone. And if they could steal Byron Murphy back like they intended to do in the draft, I think that'd be great because those zone type playmakers are exactly what Spags wants. And I think that we're going to see that happen as the evolution goes on in the next few years. Let's see who's next. Nathan Roth, doesn't it seem like looked better last year? Yeah, he's still playing catch up on the scheme, and I think he'll get there. I'm not too worried about it. He'll be okay. Okay, we got Dead Raider out of here. Mike High, yeah, I want to see less penalties as well. I'm with you. Oh, over scrolled. Hang on a second. Oh, good Lord. I'm farther behind than I thought. Okay, Carliners. Cam Irving was back at guard. Do you think he'll be the starter, or is Wiley going to be the swing tackle? That's one of the options. The other one is that Wiley goes back. I don't think Wiley looked particularly good at tackle, and I don't think Irving looked particularly good at guard. I would have probably just stuck with Wiley and made him figure out the twists, but I don't know. This will give us an idea here what happens in preseason game 4. Julio Benitez, what are your thoughts on 22? I don't feel like he's ready. I think I answered that before. I think you asked that. Sorry, I'm just behind on the chat. Justin Trova, if you were Andy, would you pull Mahomes out if he were ahead of other teams by a few TDs? Probably not in the regular season. That's his job. Go do it. But I wouldn't even play him in game 4, and I would have taken him out after a series this last game. Harry Mills, how are you? We're going through all kinds of stuff, bud. It'll replay here when we're done too. We're at 44 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here pretty soon. But there's some donations I want to make sure I get to. Let's see here. Questions. Mike Hall. Are you seeing other linebackers and them in coverage? Do you think Hitchens, Lee, and Wilson? I think Lee's not going to be a starter. Lee will be a nickel guy. They like Raglan. They're going to put him out there quite a bit in the base. So it depends. Like, are they going to come out on a nickel and it'll be Lee? Could be. I think they like Hitch, and I think they like Wilson even in the nickel. So I think those two are the guys that if they're just going to stick with one package, those would be the two. Nathan Roth, no, Speaks isn't necessarily done for the year. They're saying 3-month timeline. We'll see. He could definitely be down for the year. We'll just have to see how his rehab goes. Jerry, do you think Andy needs to show more intensity on the sideline? No, I don't think he needs to show it. That's not really his MO. I think mentally he needs to stay in it, and I think he has to show a little more killer instinct with this particular quarterback. Run up the scoring people. It's what good teams do these days. Big test. Who's more likely to get 1,000 yards, Watkins or Damien Williams? Like yards from scrimmage, definitely Damien Williams. But yards receiving, I think it's probably still Watkins. Let's see. Did I miss something? Nope. Okay, got that. Got that one. Metal Rocker, which side did you see K-Pass rushing from the most since he was in the main backup for the outside rusher? In college, he was on the right-hand side a lot. I've seen him kind of flip back and forth. I like him better on the left right now. And I think with Frank, you want Frank on the right as much as possible and just use it as kind of a changeup when you flip him. Michael Donegan, any trades that you see post week 4 preseason? No, the cuts will come out the next day. There won't be any trades then. It'll happen here in the next day or two, and that'll be it. Jacob Tapua, good question. I think Lee did get a little bit winded. I think Juan Thornhill got a little bit winded at times too. So very good question. I don't think he's hurt. I know he got a chest contusion, but I think he was winded maybe because of that too. But I don't think it's going to be anything major. Evan I, thanks for another donation. Wow, 2 in one night. Thanks, bud. Couldn't you agree that the defense is still going to rank at least 20 to 30 range just because of how strong the offense is, especially scoring 25 to 30 points a game? Not necessarily, because even if you're forcing the other team to throw the ball more, if you're able to play your zone coverages better, you should be able to stop it. Now, zone is always different, especially for the linebackers to try to get into. And that linebacker level, it makes them more susceptible, but it also slows down the offense. If you're playing to protect deep or your DBs are just better at playing the zones than the linebackers are, it opens things up underneath, but you still have chances to stop first downs. I think that's what's going to be key. Let's see. Scott Conklin, is the season going to be a bust because there's so much hype behind Mahomes? Am I the only one nervous about that? No, I don't think so. I mean, could they lose 5 games? Possibly. With this quarterback, though, you get in the playoffs, it's a whole new season, no matter what. So I don't think the hype's going to bother anything. And I don't think it's going to be overplayed, to tell you the truth. Dr. Sanitary, in hindsight, would you have overpaid for Denard or rolled the dice with Darby? Whew. I was not a fan of Denard, so I would have gone with Darby. Let's see. Next question. Low Lip. When is cut day? The day after the last preseason game. Yeah, I believe it's officially September 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern, I think. Or maybe it's 3 p.m. Central. It's 4 p.m. Eastern. Let's see here. Will Custis be stashed on the practice squad? Good question, Caleb London. I think he should. I think that Thompson's definitely going to, and it's going to come down to like how many wide receivers do you want on the practice squad? I think it's going to make the decision for the Chiefs. I think Thompson is definitely ahead of him, obviously, because of the playing time. So if they get him, if they have to do something else with some of the other guys, I think he's a great option for it, but there are other considerations as well. Let's see here. Who will be able to hold back the primary blitz defense? Oh, will we be able to hold back a primarily blitz defense? Yes. That's not going to be a problem because Mahomes is good at hitting the hot route, and he's got guys that if he can dump it to him, Pringle, Mahomes, Williams, Kelsey, they'll all make you pay, and that will back a blitzing team off some. Yeah, they had some issues against Pittsburgh, but that's because nobody does that stuff in the preseason. That was a little bit overboard on Pittsburgh's part. Ken Wood, what kind of beer are you drinking? I'm drinking Citradelic from New Belgium tonight. Appreciate that question. And are you going to brew to enjoy on Super Bowl championship, and will you share the recipe? Sure, I'll share a recipe. Super Bowl, I go back and forth between a big IPA or my winter barley wine that I make that time of year. I do Kolsch for Thanksgiving, and so then it gets a little bit heavier after that as the year goes on. Michael Donegan, Shermer become the backup at the end of the year and trade bait in 2 years? Maybe. I think he's going to spend this year on the practice squad unless he has to get called up. That's why they signed more, and I kind of feel like that's the way it's going to go. Let's see. Nathan Roth, what AFC teams do you expect to see in the playoffs? Pittsburgh, New England. I think that the Texans are going to make a push, but I think Jacksonville's going to be neck and neck with them. Chargers for sure. I do see two AFC West teams into the playoffs. Who else could make it? Did I cover that? Cleveland. I think Cleveland will be the wild card. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they are getting much better, and those weapons are going to be crazy. It's going to be about holding it together in Cleveland. And I don't think the Steelers are done. I know everybody's kind of picking against them, but I'm not convinced of that yet. Good question, Nathan. I like that one. Real Chiefs Talk. How are you? You guys, make sure you follow Real Chiefs Talk. You can find them everywhere. Great stuff to handle. I appreciate the donation, pal. Let's go Chiefs Kingdom. I like it. It's a good slogan. We'll use that, I think. Let's see. Steven Eilers, thanks for your donation. Appreciate that. You are asking if there are no trades made and the Chiefs keep 6 corners, who are they? Who's higher in your mind, Ward or Miller? Ward is definitely higher. It's Fuller, Breland, Claiborne, Ward, probably Miller. And then I think the team likes Fenton next. I think I would prefer Wade or possibly Fields to be the 6, but I think the team is going to go with Fenton. Let's see. Thanks for your donation, Stephen, though. As I'm looking for the next question. Deldrick Smith, do you think that the left tackle, Travis Kelce and Bell, what do you think of them? I think Fisher's doing well. I think he's grown into his draft position, to tell you the truth. When you look at the other tackles that were taken in his class, in Lane Johnson and Jokel, I mean, what we thought was a flop early, he's ended up being the best tackle that was taken there in that top. What were they? 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4 or whatever they were. He really has proven that to be worth the selection in that particular class. Does he stack up to other classes? Maybe not, but I think he's doing just fine. And I think an extension might be possible, but I'm not convinced of that yet. He's good, not great. Let me put it that way. Let's see who's next. Got Deldrick's low lip. Will Veatch go after Marcus Peters if he hits free agency next year? No, they do not want him back. He will not be back in the Chiefs uniform ever. He clashed with the coaching staff so bad, and not just the coaching staff that isn't here anymore. He clashed with other people. He will not be back in the Chiefs uniform. Nathan Altick. I think they're going to practice squad Dito Boyd or Pace Murphy. I think Pace Murphy's ahead there. I could even see an argument that he could be the 9th guy. I think he's shown the versatility that they want. I think they want him and Ryan Hunter on that practice squad. Does Dino make it? Maybe. Especially if one of those guys gets signed away, for sure. Ian, why didn't the Chiefs ever bring back Kelvin Benjamin and move him to tight end? Because he's not a tight end. He can't block for nothing. He's bad getting into his stance. He doesn't accelerate well. He wasn't a very good wide receiver, let alone a tight end. So that was wasted effort. Bert Ross, got my Mahomes Magic Crunch cereal in Cali, huh? Okay, well, good for you, Bert. I would never have expected that. You must have had somebody nice send it to you, because I know it wasn't available. I'm not a big cereal guy to begin with, but I think it's kind of funny. Let's see. Brett Crambeer. Who will be the most likely to replace Speaks as he does rehab? I think Agba makes the roster instead of him, but it could be Ada Ocho as well, depending on the versatility of tackle versus end. Jorge Zaragoza. What do you do with next year's number 1 draft pick? You take a cornerback, a premier shutdown cornerback, a game player that is a ball hawk. That's what you do. The corner class looks pretty good in 2020. There's a couple of guys that have to make a decision about coming out as underclassmen, but I think the corner group in next year's draft is going to be good. So, if you're picking 31st or 32nd, it's pretty tough, but there are things that you can do, and I think you definitely need to bolster that position. Let's see. Bert, again, Mahomes' dangerous play. Scrambling and diving for 1 yard short. Yeah. Don't slide anymore, or slide when you think of sliding, not when you get to the end of where you see open space, Patrick. Jeremy Jones, let's start the slide Patrick slide movement. I like that. Nice donation. I appreciate that, Jeremy. Aaron, 3rd and long. What do you think the speed of a speed line being Clark, Jones, K-Pass, and Okafor? I think that's a very likely lineup right there. And I want to see them do the NASCAR thing where 3 of them are standing. That could definitely work. Darren Lee and Reggie Ragland can also rush the passer. Whether you start them as lined up off the ball, they both rush from the edge as well. So there are options there, and I want to see them use that NASCAR, keep guys confused, just scare them to death. That's what I'd be doing. Let's see. Oh, scrolled too far again. Sorry, guys. Alec Poda. I think that the new PI replay can come back to bite people because RCBs are a little handsy. They are a little handsy, and that's true. But there's a limit to how much it can be called and the repercussions. So I don't think it's going to go crazy. But that's definitely a good point. It could happen. Let's see. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate that. I'm doing my best, man. And it is just my opinion, but hey, that's what it's for, right? Scott Conklin, what happened to Dat? I thought we already had him, and then he disappeared. He got arrested for weed possession. His contract was out, so they didn't cut him. They just didn't re-sign him. Nobody else did either. Partly between being a bit player and not having a true position and that arrest, I think it just kind of held him out. And so he hung around and he was available. So I think everybody got what they wanted. I think it worked out really nicely. Caleb, oh, dang it. Every time I scroll too far. Caleb, will Andy Reid make a play that will have Hill, Hardman, and Dat run a triple reverse jet sweep? No, I think that's too much behind the action there. I could see them doing like some kind of double motion screen somewhere, like a moving screen. I think that'd be really interesting with those guys because the speed that they could do it at. But that takes a lot of coordination. That's kind of a year down the line after you've played together for a while. Let's see. Tony Juggins, what do you think about Thompson? I think he's really interesting. I'm not convinced that he's, can be a bell cow and carry the ball over and over and over. But we'll see. I think he's more explosive than I gave him credit for, and more explosive than I saw on his film, which I admit was very, very limited because the school that he went to was at Utah State. Very hard to get film for me, so I didn't see much of it. So yeah, pleasant surprise. I thought he was going to be decent. I thought he'd make the roster because you spent the draft pick and all that, but he's actually a guy that I think can make some difference this season. Let's see. Yep, answered that. Lolip, how long before John Dorsey implodes the Browns for his poor cap management? I don't know. Clock's ticking. He's spending like a madman, and he's bringing in guys that I wouldn't even put on a roster, let alone put them all together. So there's a meltdown in their future, it feels like, especially when your quarterback is throwing his teammates under the bus and that kind of stuff. I don't dig it, but, I wasn't a big Baker fan coming out either. So it is what it is. Let's see. Ribs. What about Herb Miller? Is he a good short to intermediate routes covered, but lacks speed over the top? Yeah, he's a long, lanky guy. He needs to win early in the down. Best as a press guy. So when you do that, I think he can work. Can he work on the rest? Sure. Is he going to get that much faster? Probably not, but he's a young guy and he's still evolving. You never know. But Ross, so the news today that Darwin Thompson is the number 2 RB. Yeah, somebody else said that. And not according to anything that I've seen or anybody inside the organization that I've heard from. So we'll just see. I don't think it matters. Here's the point. Damien Williams is your starter. He's going to be the guy. Anybody else that fills in will be sporadic. Scott Meza. Yeah, I think TK does take the Speaks position, and TK is what Spags is going to call him. So thanks for reminding me of that. Let's see here. Ombre Alfisti. I think I said that right. After seeing development of Hardman, Thompson, and Thornhill, is Bret Veatch the best drafting GM in football? No. because he's missed on some corners. He's overdrafted a couple of guys. Breland speaks. But he's definitely good at looking at the skill players and their speed. Bret Veatch, I think he's got a ways to go. I don't think you can call him the best in the league, but he's very good. I think Chris Ballard is up there. I think Chris Ballard's done the best job the last 2 years, if you want to put it that way. So there's definite ties, and you can see that evolution. I am a guy, I would love to work for Bret Veatch because I think he's going to be one of the best in the game. And I have some input for some of the things that he likes. Athleticism is certainly king, as it was for Dorsey. You can see some of his tendencies. Let's see. Kenwood, no problem. I won't brew a hazy IPA ever. I'm a West Coast IPA guy. Nothing hazy on purpose. My hazy beers are usually barley wines and stouts. Let's see. Jerry, thank you. Colin Saunders, good question. Haven't talked about him enough. Was really slow to develop at first. Yes, he's got a good quick step. I think he's a little underpowered. He needs to develop his strength a little bit, in my opinion. But Spags did mention him as a guy that's coming on as the preseason's going on. And, you know, when you have Jones and Noddy and Xavier Williams and Ivy and Hamilton, guys that can do the job, that's okay. He doesn't have to contribute right away. But by mid-season, by 3/4 of the way through the season, I think you will see Colin Saunders playing some snaps and making some impact. Because, again, I just think he's too good or has too much upside not to develop. Thanks, though, Jerry. I forgot to mention him. Let's see. Okay, we're at an hour, folks, so we're going to wrap up with these last couple of questions. Scott Meza just got is Hyde out. No, he's not out, but he's probably not going to make the roster. Ken Wood, are they going overboard with these offensive PIs? I think they're trying to set the precedent. Remember when they did the you can't hit the quarterback thing, and they penalized guys for like basically no reason? I think Clay Matthews was one of them. And then they kind of backed away from that. I think that's kind of the same scenario. They're trying to put it in everybody's head so they don't have to call it as much during the season. Let's see. Garrett Rollins. How do you feel about Hardman being the offensive rookie of the year, especially since Pat is known to throw to different receivers? I think it's tough because Pat likes to move it around. Certainly, if there's any injury, Hardman's in a position that he's learned well enough to be the guy that steps up. Pushing for offensive rookie of the year is going to be a tough one. There's some quarterbacks that are going to get a lot of play, and there's a number of other position players, but I won't put anything past him. That's for sure. Good question, Garrett. Scott Conklin, thanks for listening and watching and everything else. And that goes for everybody here. 250 people an hour in. You guys are addicted, and I love it. Thank you for everything you do for me. I'll keep yakking until the day I die, whether you all are listening or it's just my wife. So she's about tired of it. So thank you. Let's see. Next one. I just had it and it jumped. Hold on. Yeah, the Browns will be definitely interesting to watch. Scott Meza, will Hill take returns or give it to Hardman? Honestly, I think they're keeping Tremont Smith so they don't have to have either of those guys do it. I think they're a little bit nervous about it. If they need a play, I think either of them can do it. And I think Hill would obviously be your first choice, in my opinion. But I think it's going to be sporadic. I think they're going to try to limit the returns for both those guys so they don't take a risk at getting them hurt. Let's see here. Okay. Scott Meza, who's your starting 5 wide receivers? Hill, Watkins, Hardman, Robinson, Pringle are my top 5. Dat would be the special teams guy. If they keep a pure receiver, I would probably keep Thompson. Sorry. I like what he brings. I think Kemp would have been that those two guys rolled up into one and would have been the 6th had he not gotten hurt. So that's where I think it sits. Let's see. Colin. Yeah, I do. Aaron Morrow, you have a very good point. I feel bad for Chris Ballard with the Luck retirement. I was pretty shocked by that. Floored, to tell you the truth. Chris Ballard can absorb this and move on, though. Chris Ballard is the consummate professional. Like I said, he's easily one of the best 5 GMs in the league right now, and I think he may be the best when it's all said and done. So it's a tough hill for him. I think he was wise to acquire Brissett. I think he was the one who acquired Brissett, and that's going to pay off. And then he's going to have to go back to the well, I think. But hey, good for him. And I think they're going to be okay. Let's see. Bert Rojas, thank you for another donation. Keep up the good work with you, Chris and Seth are awesome. Thank you. And I will tell the guys for certain they don't bother to listen to me because they have to talk with me all the time. So I will let them know. Thank you. Let's see. Real Chiefs Talk, you're back. Thanks, bud. You guys check out everything Real Chiefs Talk is doing. Definitely worth the time. I think you will enjoy it. Is Custis having problems retaining the play calls? I don't know if that's what it is or it's just the site reads learning all the positions. They want everybody to know every position. X, Y slot. So I'm sorry, XZ slot. That might be part of it. I haven't heard anybody really say anything about the process for Custis. So I think it's probably just the jump that he's making. I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about, but I think it'll be okay. But thanks for the donation again. I really appreciate it. If you guys ever wonder what I use these for, the last video I did a little thing where I unpacked my camera bag, right? And that's what I took to training camp. And all that gear that I used to make those videos at training camp came from the donations from this channel. So thank you all. Whether you donated today or 6 months ago, thank you, because it's letting me buy lights. It's letting me get some of the gear so I can do more things that aren't right here in this room in the studio. So it really does help a lot. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Harry. That's a good point. Try to keep the wife happy. I understand that concept. Adam Daughtry, will you ever play a guitar solo for us? I know about 2. I'm not a lead player. I'm a rhythm guy. I play rhythm guitar, acoustic. I play a little mandolin, but not leads. I do leads for old Cash and Haggard songs that go really, really slow because I'm not a picker. But thanks. I'll play something for you guys sometime. It'll be terrible over this camera, but we'll have fun with it. Let's see. Cole Keeler, is it confirmed that they're keeping Tremont Smith? No, it's just a feeling that I have. I could be wrong. Chris isn't so sure, but I feel like he's going to. I think they're looking for an excuse to keep Tremont Smith because they like his return ability. So, Ken Wood, favorite lager, bottom fermenting style. Grolsch is always a go-to for me. I like Polliner. There's a couple of American ones too, but nothing that really sticks out to my head right now. So thanks, Ken. That's a good question. And if you guys are into beer, make sure you check out the podcast on the other channel on RGR podcasts. There's new ones that are just RGR craft is what it's called. It's just about craft beer. Just like once a week, just something I do in the meantime. So Larry Robinson, I think Bashad Breeland is looking pretty good. Good call. Scott Mesa, thanks for that one. I'll use that hashtag. Ivory Bridgewater, what split do you see Tyreek playing outside versus inside? 60-40 split. I think he's going to play a little bit more out there because Hardman played a lot inside in college, and I think he can do that. I think he gets the better matchups for Tyreek out wide. But there's going to be the motions and all that stuff. So 60-40 is probably a good estimation. I think it might be a little more 70-30, but that's just a hunch. I don't know. Baron Cross, top sack leaders and int leaders on this defense. I think Matthew and Thornhill will lead you in interceptions. And I think Jones and Clark will lead you in sacks. I think Okafor is going to be a third, though, on the sack list. I think he's going to have a banner year for his career. Evan, I like that. Anthony Sherman should get 15 touchdowns this year if everything goes to plan. It would definitely happen if I was calling the shots, but we'll see what happens. Okay, last 2. Dwight Raleigh, how about the years of football this season? 150 years in college, 100 years in NFL, 60th season for the Chiefs. Yeah, it's all kind of coming together. That's pretty cool. And I like the thing they did on the franchise last week. If you guys haven't checked that out, you can hear a little bit of me in episode 6. In episode 7, they went to the hall and they showed Lamar and all that, and I thought that was great. So check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Curtis, yes, I love Scottish beer. And last question, Scott Mesa, will Raglan stay in the Sam position or rotate? They're going to move all of them around, but I think Sam's his best fit. He will go into the middle at times. I think they want to be multiple, and they want to keep the offenses on their toes. So they're going to mix it up as much as they can. So thank you. Thank you guys for everything tonight, for all the donation. It's been great. I'm really looking forward to this. We'll try to continue this on Monday nights. If you guys want it, I know a lot of folks want one right after the Sunday night, especially Sunday night games. Chiefs are on prime time enough this year. I'm just trying to keep it on Monday so we have it consistent so we can always get a crowd. That's what I'm looking for. So, hey, thank you for all of your time tonight. Spread the word. Let everybody know. Let everybody get subbed too. Tell your friends. And if it works out, leave comments. I'll put up a poll here in the next day or two, whether you want these Q&As to stay on Monday or maybe move to Sunday. Just let me know what you all think. Thanks for your time, and I'll talk to you next time.